thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. So this is the podcast explaining violence against women and girls and meeting with various people involved in this field to discuss what VAWG means to them. So we'll do a round of introductions. My name's Tracy Onsor, I'm Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for West Mercia. I'll just hand over to Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon Wallace-Rathmell. I'm the Domestic Abuse Lead for West Mercia Police.
Thanks, Sharon. And Nick.
Hi everyone, my name's Nicola Lowry and I'm the Assistant Police Crime Commissioner for West Mercia, working alongside Tracy.
Oh, brilliant. And thanks for joining me, guys, this afternoon. So, obviously, Sharon, you are at West Mercia and this is one of your areas. Do you want to just give a bit of an explanation about the kind of things you get involved in for those that are listening?
Okay, so my main role is to ensure, from a force perspective, to look at how we're performing in around domestic abuse and from a strategic perspective, have a look at ways of improving that performance and the confidence within the public and improving ways in which we can work with partners to be there for victims of domestic abuse.
Oh, brilliant, thanks. And so obviously we've just briefly there, you've given an intro about what you do from a work perspective, but from a personal perspective, what does VAWG mean to you? You know, you tend to alter what you do after a night out, so I won't go that way home, or I won't do this because it might be a bit dark, might not be too many people there. We have to think that way as women. So it was really, from your perspective, what kind of things alter in your personal and social life because of it?
So I am one of three, so two sisters. So really throughout our lives, that's been sort of the way that we've had to think, protect each other, going out with friends, going out with family if it is girls, think about how we're going to get home. If we get in a taxi, then take the registration, text, ring when you get there. So you have to think differently. Even when I'm walking my dog, I have to think differently. It's dark now. Where am I going to go? So I think it's just that you have to be in that mindset to be on alert all the time. Like, who is that behind me? Who is that in front of me? We have to think differently to men. 100%.
Yeah, and that about when people are walking behind you, just how often does that happen? And of course they're oblivious, aren't they? You know, hopefully 9 times out of 10, but you instantly, aren't you, are looking over your shoulder, wondering what's happening, where's the light, are they getting closer to me, are they? Yeah, it's not great. And Nick?
Yeah, it's something I've, adapted, I suppose, in my life, being much more conscious of my behaviour, my actions, how they're received by people, I suppose, not wanting to attract unwarranted attention, shall we say, but it shouldn't always come down to the woman having to consider her actions in this, and hopefully men are taking much more ownership of considering their actions to how that might firstly make women feel, even if they aren't looking to obviously commit an offence, but equally as well calling out certain behaviours and how they come across, how they are perceived. What are your thoughts on that, Sharon? Do you think men have got much more aware of this issue? I think particularly with the high profile cases that we've seen, such as Sarah Aviard, do you think there is that societal change, not just from women, but equally men taking a bit more ownership of this subject area?
I think for some men it's been a very uncomfortable time, and specifically I opened Domestic Abuse Matters, which is our training for the police, not so long ago, where Damien Barrett, our ACC, came along at the time, and he actually posed that question to the male officers: how do you actually feel at this time? And there was like a silence, and it's very interesting because I think you have got different cohorts of the men in society, where some will say they're angry at it because they feel like they're in this bubble now where they're being looked at, that everybody, they're all perpetrators, specifically police officers after what Wayne Couzens horrifically did. However, I think we've also got that element of the younger generation that hopefully are being a little bit more educated around what's happening with the things that are going around now on social media, asking them to speak out, not be a bystander, and call out their friends when their friends do something which they think is a bit uncomfortable towards women. But I do think we've still got a long way to go. I think it's a culture that has been embedded into society that I think we've still got a long way to go. We've got to continue driving it from
absolutely.
all angles.
And you've not got to be fearful of somebody saying, "Oh, you're a feminist, you're a this, you're a that," making it as ridiculing what you're saying, because it's only through everybody calling out these instances that people won't do it, won't they? Because it won't be a cool thing to say, it won't be a good thing to say. But
a completely different new world now. We're in this. The world of technology is moving so quickly, and we've gone over the last few decades where children now have got access to that, and teenage relationships and healthy relationships is something that I think needs to come from our partners, support agencies out there, from education, because I'm not sure that that's actually been implemented into the educational system. But then of course we've also got the education to parents, because a lot of parents allow their children to have these devices, but do they actually understand what is behind those devices and what they're actually looking at? And it can have damaging effects on a child's thought processes, mindset around what is a healthy relationship, specifically maybe around the type of sexual relationship and what's accepted as as a, don't want to use the word normal, but in that respect, it's not right for you to be doing that to your partner. No. It's a problem that we've seen, because it can cause children to become offenders. And sometimes innocently doing things that everybody else is doing, but not realise actually that's a criminal offence. And so we've had to deal with that side of it as well. So, and
from a parental perspective,
and of course we've now also got revenge porn as well, haven't we? So they're utilising where photographs may be taken in a consensual relationship, but also now they're then used when that relationship ends. They're used as a tool to abuse somebody. But then it's really important for people to understand that, to try and protect themselves under those circumstances. They might feel comfortable at the time, but down the line, that is something that's on there forever.
And it's forever,
isn't it?
It doesn't go. It's forever. Yeah. This is obviously a huge problem, and it isn't something that the police can tackle on their own. So how do West Mercia work with partners around the area of violence against women and girls?
Well, obviously violence against women and girls is a huge umbrella, isn't it?
Yeah.
Underneath it falls many different themes in relation to, you've got domestic abuse, you've got sexual violence, you've got child sexual exploitation. It's massive. So partnership working is what we need. It has to be a whole systems approach. We can't do it on our own. We are very reactive to being there when things have happened. What we want to become is more preventative, obviously, with the prevention strategy. It's really important now that we do start looking at how we can prevent these happening and learn from what's things that have gone on in the past in relation to our partnership work. And I think it'd be very wrong for me to say it's fantastic, we're doing a fantastic job. I think the message which comes from the National Framework for Violence Against Women and Girls, from the lead, is the police can't do this together. So we have got to work with our partner agencies. And a lot of that's about, so for example, in my field, is that I understand that someone who's suffering from domestic abuse is more likely to open up to a specialist worker. They understand that abuse, they understand what that person's going through, more so than a police officer, because a police officer has so many other hats to put on. So working with specialist support agencies that can protect and safeguard and also give confidence to the victims to come forward and if it's not always the answer, the justice system. I think that's what we also have to realise, that the justice system is a route to take to protect and to get justice for the victim. However, if we can work with our partners to say, actually, you're best suited to actually protect and be there and support this victim, to maybe, for example, create some sort of safety mechanism, a safety plan for them to get out of a relationship, which I think is really important.
And as you say, it's sometimes a lifelong support network for people, isn't it? Particularly if it is domestic abuse, sexual violence, and it's involving a range of partners, from housing to, would you say, specialised services, the NHS. So it is very much about working together in conjunction to make sure that support is in place.
It's got to be a joint approach. It's just, and I think often years ago, which I was sort of trying to allude to, is that we've tended to work in isolation and not realise.
A bit siloed,
Very siloed, and that doesn't work, because once we've lost somebody, they don't want to work with us anymore, then we've lost them. Whereas if we can work alongside, and that people do reach out as well to the community, the volunteers out there and the specialist workers, even before they come to us. So then there's that joint working, and then
it could be at any point in their journey, couldn't it, that they reach out to somebody?
Yeah, they might come to us and then go away from us, and then specifically with domestic abuse, it's not a simple journey that suddenly I'm going to now report to X, Y, and Z, and everything's going to be okay. It can take a long time to come out the other side, if at all.
Absolutely. I mean, you've talked greatly there, which is really good to hear about the work the police are doing. Is there anything more that you think individuals, society, partners could be doing to try and, I suppose, address VAWG, to push it further up the agenda and really, I suppose, progress what we're trying to achieve in reducing violence against women?
I think for individuals and society, I think what we've already alluded to is we need to speak out. We need to call out inappropriate behaviour, and I will allude to that includes police officers within the police service. Since the Wayne Couzens trial and the horrific things that have gone on there, we've had the Charing Cross incident as well. And I think one thing for me is that it's important for us to have confidence in the communities to be able to come forward. So we've got to show that we will deal with perpetrators robustly. We've also got to support victims, so alongside our partners, and then our partners have confidence in us as well. That's really important because it's been knocked, hasn't it, massive? I'm not going to lie. The confidence towards the police has been knocked nationally. But the other thing as well is for our staff, like I alluded to earlier, that even male police officers were horrified about what happened. And I think for the females within the organisation, for the males within the organisation, we need to, if we're going to ask people to call out, and if we're going to ask people to stand up and not be bystanders, then we need to show that we're there to support them as well to do that. Because I think that works in every element of society, in organisations and outside. We have got to show that we will support you if you are going to hold your head up high and say, I don't agree with that behaviour, I want something done about it. And I think then for us to continue to be robust around it as well. So, but the other side of it, I think, which is really important, on the DRIVE Fellow, which the DRIVE is the Domestic Abuse Perpetrators Programme, that's been working really well in Herefordshire and Worcestershire. And for me, that has really turned my thought process, my mindset in actually working with perpetrators is certainly a way forward.
It's a challenging subject, isn't it? I get why, the public sometimes find that a very challenging area to look at, given that it's working with perpetrators. What benefits have you found that's brought victims, and equally how that's changed the behaviours of perpetrators?
Well, interestingly, obviously within that programme, then the victim also gets support from a specialist worker for 12 months. It protects them, it makes them, not all victims want to leave a relationship, so it can often, you can work with the perpetrator to make them understand healthy relationships, what the effect their behaviour is having on not only the victim but maybe the children and other members of the family. And I think often from the other side of it, it helps them separate with and then calm things down, and again, specifically if they've got children involved, childcare arrangements and things like that. And then I think some other feedback from a perpetrator was that actually nobody's ever asked me to talk about why I behave like this, and then actually talk about why I do behave like this, and really go back. We all know about adverse childhood experiences, why a lot of people do get involved in crime and potentially violent crime, is because maybe they've had those experiences, not all, but maybe some of them have had those experiences in the past, and it's maybe that's quite, I think, good for them to start opening up that box to understand why they are,
what's been going on,
what's been going on, what they're doing. So for me, not just about that victim as well. We know that a lot of perpetrators go on to then
reaffirm
to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and potentially we're stopping that by them recognising their behaviour and maybe thinking more about a healthy relationship.
And I think DRIVE is scheduled across Worcestershire, was set up to take out 100 high risk perpetrators. Well, that's 200 victims at least, and like you say, when I've seen what they call the spider's web diagram, which has got all of their different relationships, we're probably looking at 300 or 400 different victims, because they will all go on to next relationship and it will be exactly the same as their previous, because that's the way they're wired to do that. And until we do something about that, and that's just the women, that's not even getting onto the children, because there's an awful lot of some of the children that are involved. There can be 5 or 6 children to each perpetrator. So now if one perpetrator, you could potentially have 20 victims very easily, you know, if not more.
Yeah.
So to take out 100 actually takes out an awful lot of victims and a lot of suffering.
And it breaks that cycle, doesn't it? And hopefully, as you say, limits. Certainly prevents any more victims being, I suppose.
It's not going to work for all. We must.
No, that's right.
We have to, you know, it doesn't work for all. It is, but when it does, when you do see and hear of some really good feedback and case studies, then it's quite inspirational, really.
Yeah.
And I just think it's something that we never would have thought about years ago, because the comment was, they'll never change. They'll never change. They'll never change.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe we were wrong. There's a proportion, I think, of perpetrators that probably will.
Yeah, who won't. But as you say, it's very much about that education, and it's putting that onus back on the male as opposed to the female having to change their behaviour.
Yeah.
Whilst, you know, I know victims are involved in that process. Again, it's getting the male, if that be the perpetrator in that scenario, to actually take that ownership and actually look at how their behaviour is impacting their families and people involved.
Yeah.
So to end on then, I think I'm very keen to find out, what's your one message that you would want listeners to take away?
For the listeners out there, I think it is speak out, call out, you know, male or female, because we shouldn't just be saying to males, call it out.
No.
Everybody should call out when they see someone being abused or inappropriate behaviour, misogynistic attitude towards women. And then I suppose my other message would be to the males out there is maybe just take a little bit of time and think what it is like for a female to walk down the street when it's dark, or have to not do something, or have to have an app on their phone to make them feel safe. And I think for us, the message is that this shouldn't be about the females having to change their behaviour. This is about a societal change, about some male's attitude towards women.
Yeah.
And if we can push forward and try and change that, but it's a culture change which is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. It's not just banter, is it? It's not just banter.
No.
And Nick, anything?
I think, as Sharon has alluded to, it's encouraging people to really just have that confidence to call out certain behaviours. I know it's very difficult, particularly if it's a sort of peer-peer sort of environment, but equally it's about changing societal views, while something that might be said in jest or banter, as you've just referred to, actually is just conflating the problem a lot of the time. So I think it's having that confidence in that sort of setting to speak out, and equally as well, you know, being much more aware of people's behaviours, how you come across. If sadly it does progress the route as we've talked through, when it is you have been the victim or you know, a survivor of a situation, it is about speaking out and, you know, working with the police, working with the support that is there. You know, the support is available. People want you to come forward, so I just hope people have the confidence to do so, and hopefully together we can make some real big societal changes.
Brilliant. Nick, Sharon, thanks very much.
Thank you.